Okay, I am Chandrasekhar of MBA department in PACE Institute of Technology and Sciences. I am working as an associate professor in Department of MBA. Today, I am going to explain about break-even analysis in managerial economics and financial analysis. Okay, here break-even analysis. It is a very important concept which will be useful for the people. First of all, what is the course objective? The course objective of this topic is people will understand about cost concepts, production concepts, how can we reduce the cost of a manufacturing product. Outcome will be the business people will easily calculate the lowest possible cost of manufacturing of each and every product. Okay, I am explaining about break-even analysis. So, this break-even analysis concept, which is going to be comes in managerial economics and financial analysis for especially BTech students. Managerial economics and financial analysis. Okay, in this break-even analysis, break-even analysis. What is break-even analysis? Each and every organization wants to be in the secure zone or safe zone, whatever it may be. The organization may be manufacturing organization or a service oriented organization or any other organization. Each and every organization wants to be in a safe and secure condition. How can we will be safe in that particular condition, which is going to be calculated by this break even analysis. Okay, now in the break even analysis, we will know about cost concepts. Based upon the cost concepts only, we are going to calculate that break even analysis. So what is the cost? First of all, what is the cost? Cost is the exact value to produce a product at a manufacturing area is called as cost. For example, the cost will be calculated like this. Cost is equals to material value or amount. Next, labor charges, labor charge to manufacture, labor charges to manufacture. Next, rent and insurance. Like this, for each product, they are going to calculate the total value of manufacturing, that is called as cost. Once again, I am repeating that cost is the exact value at a manufacturing area is called as cost. Now, what is price? Why I am saying that price means we have to know the difference between cost and price. Generally, on each and every product, we will observe that maximum retail price within the brackets including of all taxes. So we have to know the difference between cost and price. Now what is price? Price is equals to cost plus profit plus all other tax. Whatever the cost which we incur plus profit what we expect, generally according to the norms 10% or 15% or 20% which we can accept, plus all the other taxes like customs tax, sales tax, service tax, all the taxes which are going to be added to the cost value and your expected profit value, then the total value will be called as price. For example, the cost which was manufactured of a product is 10 rupees. Just assume that it is 10 rupees is a manufacturing cost of a pen. After that, profit, you can expect 2 rupees of profit. Next, taxes, 1 rupee of taxes. I am saying that only for one product. Now, the price of this product will be 13. At 13 rupees, we are going to sell this product in the market. Here, cost will be, now how the cost is going to calculate? Cost will be material value 7 rupees. Next, labor charge for product 1 rupee. Next, any other rent 2 rupees. Then the total value will be 10 rupees. This is cost for this one. Whatever the profit you are expecting plus the taxes which we are paying will be totally called as price. Okay. After this, we are going to know about direct calculation of break-even analysis. Break-even analysis. In the break-even analysis, we have to know about how the break-even point is going to calculate. For the break-even point, we have a graphical representation. I am going to draw the graph here. X-axis, Y-axis. Here, the line which will be horizontal, the line which is going to be horizontal to the x-axis, that is called as fixed cost line. Fixed cost line. After that, we are going to start a line from here. This is called as total revenue. Next, here onwards, we are going to start another line. This is called as total cost. So, we have to know about total cost. Here, total cost is equals to fixed cost plus variable cost. Fixed cost plus variable cost. What is fixed cost? What is variable cost? Fixed cost, the fixed cost line will be similar to the x-axis. It means the fixed cost is the cost which is constant. The fixed cost is the cost which is constant. Earlier we discussed about that cost price. When we are calculating the cost, in the previous example, we quoted that 7 rupees of material charges and 1 rupee of labor charges and 2 rupees of any other rent, something else. Within that 10 rupees, some value will be fixed cost. Remaining value will be variable cost. Now, what is a fixed cost means? Fixed cost is the cost which is constant, which should not change depending upon the level of production increase or decrease, such cost is called as fixed cost. For example, if we take a room for rent, within that rented room, if you manufacture one product, 10 products, 100 products, or 1000 products, you should not increase your rent, you should not decrease your rent. Whatever the rent which will be paid at the time of agreement, the same amount will be paid if the level of production increase or decrease. So that we can say that rent is a fixed cost. Fixed cost is the cost which is constant, which should not change depending upon the business increase or level of production increase or decrease. Such cost is called as fixed cost. Another example, employee salary. If the employee is recruited to manufacture the products in your organization, that employee, depending upon the quantity increase, depending upon the quantity decrease, you should not change the salary. If the quantity which was produced at your organization on a day 10 units, on that 10 units of day, you should not pay the salary 1000. On other day, depending upon the demand, the employee produced that 20 products. On that 20 products manufactured day, you should not pay 2000 rupees as salary. Whatever the salary which was fixed to the employee, whatever the quantity he may produce, you will pay the same amount as a salary to the particular employee. So that is also a fixed cost. Next, what is variable cost? Variable cost is the cost which varies depending upon the level of production increase or decrease. For that one, if 10 products were manufactured at the organization, they invested that 1000 rupees. Next, if they want to produce 15 units, they have to spend that 1500 rupees according to the ratio. Because of here, to manufacture the 10 products, they invested 1000 rupees. If the level of production increases from 10 units to 15 units, that means there is an increase of 5 units. Depending upon the 5 units of increase level of quantity, then they have to invest more money. So on an average of for each and every product, they are investing 100 rupees. On an average, they are investing for each and every product 100 rupees. So that to manufacture the 15 products, they have to invest 1500 rupees. If they want to increase this quantity level to 20, with the ratio of one product is equals to one product manufacturing cost is equals to 100, they have to invest to manufacture 20 products 2000. Like this, variable cost means wherever the quantity level increases, depends upon the quantity level increase, the cost is also increases. That varying cost is called as variable cost. That varying cost is called as variable cost. Now coming to the break-even point graphical representation. Here we are having y-axis and x-axis. Here onwards we started that total revenue. Here onwards we started that fixed cost curve. Here onwards total cost curve. The fixed cost curve which will be like a straight line which is similar to that x-axis means fixed cost. We already discussed that fixed cost is constant. So that the line is also similarly going on a straight line mode. Next, total revenue. Total revenue means the amount which will be generated by selling the products in the market. If you sell one product, depends upon this example, if you sell one product for 110 rupees, because of the manufacturing cost of your product is 100, so that you will add some profit and taxes. After adding this, you will sell your product in the market for 110 rupees. Here 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units, 5 units, 6 units, 7, 8, 9 and 10 units. Here number of units. Here number of units. Here price. if the product will be sold for 110 rupees. Next, to sell two products, it will be 220. Three products, 330. So that total revenue curve, where the level of quantity of sales increases, the line is also going to the upward direction. Next, how the total cost curve will be starting from here. Here I noted that the total cost is equals to fixed cost plus variable cost. Up to here, on each and every product, the fixed cost value includes. There onwards, you will start. Here, this is 0 units of point. Here 1 unit of point. Here 2 units of point. That means already we discussed that variable cost. Here the variable cost, the variable cost which is going to be increasing like this. That's why total cost is equals to fixed cost plus variable cost. For the total cost, origin point is fixed cost which will be connected on the y axis. What is the reason behind this? To connect the total cost and it makes the origin as a fixed cost, because of up to here whatever the amount we are going to add, whatever the amount we are going to incur to produce a product will be charged on each and every product, so that up to here the fixed cost, and for that we have to add the variable cost. The margin, whatever the margin here, that is variable cost value. This point, this particular point will be called as break even point. This particular point will be called as break even point. Now, what is the break even point? The break even point is the point where a manufacturing organization doesn't get any profit, where an organization doesn't get any loss. Such a point is called as break even point. That point will arises where the total revenue curve which will be intersecting on total cost curve, where the total cost curve will be intersected by that total revenue curve. That intersection point will be called as break even point. That break even point means break even point is equals to where no loss or no profit. For that purpose, we are going to calculate break even point. Each and every organization has to observe, because of when we are doing any business, first of all we have to be in the safe zone. When we are going to be in the safe zone means where we should not get any profit, at the same time you should not get any loss, then that point is called as the safest point. That safest point is going to calculate with the help of this break even point. So that this break even point is also called as no profit or no loss point. That break even point is going to be arises where the total cost curve will be intersected by that total revenue curve. For this one, we are having a calculation. Now, we are going to see that calculation. Break even point will be calculated like this. Calculation of break even point. Point will be calculated by using two different methods. First method is if unit price is there, which was given in the problem, then we are going to use a method. Sometimes the values are in bulk amount, there we have to apply another method. Now coming to the first one, calculation of break even point. While calculating of break even point, if unit prices had given, how we are going to calculate? We are going to calculate this break even point in terms of units. In terms of units. With the help of that fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. Now within this formula we know that what is fixed cost. Once again I am repeating that fixed cost is the cost which is constant in a manufacturing of a product is called as fixed cost. Now what is contribution per unit? Contribution which is going to be calculated with the differences of sales value to the variable value, sales price to the variable price. Like that, now the contribution margin per unit is equals to the contribution margin per unit is equals to or contribution per unit is equals to sales price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Sales price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Sales price per unit, whatever the sales price given in the problem, on that if you reduce that variable cost, the remaining balance will be called as contribution margin per unit. With the help of this formula, we will calculate the number of units, how much we have to sell to be in the safest position of organization, that is break even point in terms of units. And break even point is also calculated in terms of rupees, in terms of rupees or amount. For this one, formula is fixed cost divided by contribution margin, contribution margin ratio. As similar to this contribution margin per unit, once again in the denominator contribution margin ratio is there. That contribution margin ratio is also calculated with another formula. Contribution margin ratio is equals to contribution margin ratio is equals to sales minus variable cost divided by sales. Otherwise, it is also called as selling price per unit. Selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit divided by selling price per unit. Or otherwise, contribution margin ratio is equals to 1 minus variable cost, 1 minus variable cost divided by selling price. We can use any one of these formulas to calculate that contribution margin ratio. What is the difference between this first formula to second formula is, first formula which will give you number of units at the safest point or break even point. Second formula which will give you the amount where you are going to be safe in the organization. This is break even point calculation. After this, you have to calculate that margin of safety. Now we are going to see how the margin of safety is going to calculate. Margin of safety, the word itself, it is revealing that how we are in the safest condition, at what point, at what level. For that one, we are going to calculate two different things, like a break even point in terms of rupees and a break even point in terms of value. Now That margin of safety first will be calculated for number of units. Margin of safety in terms of units will be calculated like this. Break even point in terms of units minus actual sales. Otherwise, we are going to calculate by using another technique. Margin of safety is equals to margin of safety is equals to actual sales in terms of rupees minus break even point in terms of rupees. Okay, next we are going to calculate total revenue. We are going to calculate total revenue. Total revenue is equals to number of units sold into selling price per unit. Selling price per unit. That means in the first method of calculation, we have to calculate break even point in terms of units and break even point in terms of rupees, next margin of safety and total revenue. When we are going to calculate these methods means if the selling price value will be in units like 1 rupee, 9 rupees or not more than 4 digits like 1000 or 9999, we have to depend on first method of calculation. If it is 10,000, 20,000 or 1 lakh or 1 crore, then you have to depend on second method of calculation. How we are going to calculate that second method? For the second method of a calculation, we have to calculate first one break even point. This break even point will be calculated with the formula fixed cost divided by P by V ratio. Fixed cost divided by P by V ratio. Next, second formula which is going to be calculate margin of safety. Margin of safety. For the margin of safety, net profit divided by P by V ratio. Net profit divided by P by V ratio. In both of the formulas, we are having that P by V ratio common. P by V ratio common. What is P by V ratio? P by V ratio is equals to P by V ratio means profit volume ratio. Profit volume ratio. How it is going to calculate? This P by V ratio separately going to calculate with a formula. What is that formula? P by V ratio is equals to contribution divided by sales into 100. If we use this formula, we should get a P by V ratio. Based upon that value, if you substitute that value in the margin of safety denominator and the break even point denominator, you should get a break even point. Here you should get a margin of safety. Okay, for this one, for example, I am going to calculate one problem here. For the first method of calculation, selling price per unit is equals to selling price per unit is equals to 100 rupees and variable cost per unit is equals to variable cost per unit is equals to 60 rupees. Next, actual sales. actual sales is equals to some 25,000 units. Actual sales is equals to 25,000 units. Now, how should we calculate that first method? In the first method, we already discussed that break even point in terms of units we have to calculate. Next, break even point in terms of units we have, sorry, rupees we have to calculate. Next, third one, margin of safety we have to calculate. Next, fourth one, total revenue we have to calculate. These are the four formulas which we have to calculate if the values will be like this which was given in the problem. Now, first coming to the break even point in terms of units calculation. For this one, already we discussed that formula. What is that formula? Break even point in terms of units is equals to fixed cost contribution margin per unit. Fixed cost divided by contribution margin per unit. So once again, contribution margin per unit denominator will be calculated like this. Contribution margin per unit. Contribution margin per unit is equals to selling price per unit, selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit, variable cost per unit. Now, according to these values, now I am going to calculate that break even point in terms of units. So, fixed cost value, we don't have fixed cost value. Just assume that fixed cost value, fixed cost value is equals to 25 rupees. 25 rupees, sorry, 25,000 rupees. 25,000 rupees. Now, fixed cost value of 25,000 rupees divided by contribution margin ratio. Directly I am substituting the formula here. Why? Because selling price is there, variable cost is there. So that we have to calculate contribution margin per unit. That contribution margin per unit formula is selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Now, selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Then 25,000 divided by 40. 25,000 divided by 40. If we apply that here, 25,000 force 625, 625. 625. That means సరిపోయింది టైము, టైం సరిపోయిందా ఇంకా చేసేస్తాను నేను, అయిపోద్ది కొద్దిగా ఒక 1 minute పాస్ చేయండి సార్, ఒక్క నిమిషం, ఎందుకంటే క్యాలిక్యులేషన్ కరెక్ట్గా. నెక్స్ట్ సెకండ్ వన్ ఈజ్ బ్రేక్ ఈవెన్ పాయింట్ ఇన్ టర్మ్స్ ఆఫ్ రూపీస్. Break even point in terms of rupees. This is also which is going to be calculated, we discussed earlier. For that one formula is fixed cost divided by contribution, fixed cost divided by contribution margin ratio. Fixed cost divided by contribution margin ratio. This contribution margin ratio which is going to be calculated with the help of 1 minus variable cost, 1 minus variable cost divided by selling price, like that. Now, fixed cost value is 25,000 rupees and like 1 minus variable cost divided by selling price or earlier we discussed that selling price minus variable cost divided by selling price. Now selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit divided by selling price per unit divided by selling price per unit. It is equals to 25,000 of fixed cost divided by 40 divided by 60. That is equals to 25,000 divided by 0.66. 0.66. When we go that 60% of 25, 66% of 20,000, 18, 19,000, approximately 20,000 rupees. Approximately 20,000 rupees. Why? Because 60,000 rupees into selling price per unit is equals to that. Next, margin of safety. Margin of safety means margin of safety. Margin of safety is equals to actual sales, which was given as 25,000 units. Here we got that only 6,250 units. Now actual sales minus break even point sales, that is equals to actual sales of 25,000 units minus 6,250 units. Here huge amount of actual sales was there, so that we are in maximum profit zone. That's why here approximately 18,750. Next, total revenue, which is going to be calculated. Total revenue is equals to number of units sold. Number of units sold is 25,000 units. Now number of units sold multiply with selling price per unit. Multiply with selling price per unit. That is equals to number of units sold 25,000 into 60 rupees. 1,50,000. Okay, like this we are going to calculate the break even point. Next, how the lump sum method is going to calculate. On that second method of calculation, the values are in bulk amounts. Sales 1 lakh rupees. Sales 1 lakh rupees. Next, variable cost. Next, variable cost 50,000 rupees. 50,000 rupees. This is 50,000 rupees. Next, fixed cost. Fixed cost 30,000 rupees. 30,000 rupees. Based upon that, how we are going to calculate that break even point. Here we discussed that the break even point, which is going to be calculated like this. First one, we have to calculate break even point. Second one, margin of safety. Second one, margin of safety. Next, third one is P by V ratio. This P by V ratio, which will be used by margin of safety calculation and break even point calculation. Now first one, break even point. For break even point calculation, the formula is fixed cost divided by P by V ratio. Next, for the calculation of break even point, we don't have that P by V ratio value. Okay, leave it. Next, come to the second calculation, margin of safety calculation. Margin of safety calculation. To calculate this margin of safety, formula is net profit divided by P by V ratio. So in this formula, to calculate margin of safety also, we need P by V ratio value. So that I am going to calculate P by V ratio here. P by V ratio is equals to contribution P by V ratio is equals to contribution divided by sales into 100. So we don't have contribution also. We are having only sales value. For that purpose, what we have to do is, once again we have to calculate the contribution. So calculation of contribution will be like this. Contribution is equals to sales minus variable cost. Sales minus variable cost. So sales value given in the problem is 1 lakh minus variable cost is 50,000. So 50,000 is contribution. Now here contribution is 50,000 divided by sales value of 1 lakh into 100. That is equals to 50%. 50%. Now break even point calculation. Come to the break even point. Here break even point, which is calculated with the formula fixed cost divided by P by V ratio. So fixed cost value of 30,000 divided by P by V ratio is 50%. Now 30,000 divided by 1 into 100 divided by 50. 100 divided by 50. That is also 3 lakhs divided by 50. 1 lakh 50,000. Next, come to the margin of safety. Here we need net profit. Only we are having contribution, we are having fixed cost, we are having variable cost, and we are having sales. That net profit. So to calculate the net profit, we have to use another formula. Net profit is equals to contribution minus fixed cost. Now contribution is 50,000 minus fixed cost is 30,000. The remaining value is 20,000. Now the margin of safety. For the margin of safety, net profit is equals to 20,000 divided by P by V ratio is equals to 50%. So when we simplify it, 20,000 divided by 1 into 100 divided by 50. This is 10 lakhs. Like this, we are going to calculate that P by V second method of calculation. Okay, just here 20,000 into 100 divided by 50, that is equals to, it is not 10 lakhs, simply it is 40,000 rupees. It is 40,000 rupees. So like this, we are going to calculate that break even point bulk amount of calculation, and a break even point, previously we calculated that break even point per unit value. Okay, this is break even analysis. Finally, here I am going to conclude that what is break even point and break even analysis. In this break even point and break even analysis, the benefit for the organizations is they will calculate the point where they should not get profit, where they should not get loss. So that this break even point is very, very important for any organizations. Okay, thank you.